This 1064 is not necessary. It's not urgent. It is not in the mandate of this ethics committee. And Chair, for that reason, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Point of order.
Mr. Chair, I request a recorded vote on this. Thank you.
That's fine, Mr. Chong.
Point of order.
It's
point
not,
of order, Mr. Chair.
On a point of order, it's not debatable what Ms. Khalid just...
I just want clarification to the effect of what Ms. Khalid has moved is to shut down debate.
I'm so sorry, Chair, but no, I refuse to let
this
1064 to become political gander for
Ms. Khalid, I've already addressed that with Mr. Cooper, and for those who are watching at home, this is a dilatory motion to stop the meeting before a decision is rendered. So I am going to ask the clerk. It is non-debatable. Mr. Chong has asked for recorded division, and I'm going to ask the clerk.
Sorry, Chair. It sounds like you're debating a little bit there.
No, I'm explaining. I'm explaining, Ms. Khalid.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'm explaining exactly what's going on here, and that there is no further debate. That you have asked that this meeting be adjourned without a decision of the committee being made.
What?
I'm explaining.
Because this is not the mandate of the committee, Chair.
That's your opinion.
Hey gang, what's up? Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. This is a flashback, a bit of a blast from the past, but my goodness, Iqra Khalid is a very disruptive MP in these committee meetings. She's always trying to offset the meetings, delay, divide, distract, all the liberal tactics. Let's take a look. This one is hard to watch, guys. We've got a couple of rounds here, one with Michael Chong, one with Michael Cooper, but then we're getting into Iqra Khalid, who is just trying to shut this meeting down. She's always trying to shut the investigations down, acting like she's holier than thou, talking down to the Conservatives. Let's take a peek. This lady is ridiculous.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Chair, now, when I dropped the gavel, I saw Mr. Chong, Mr. Cooper, Mr. Ellis, Mr. Berthold, and then Ms. Khalid came up. So I'm going to start.
I'm so very sorry, Chair. I thought that I had requested that I be second after, and I have given notice. I had my hand up. I would really appreciate that, Chair.
Sorry, Ms. Khalid, but the meeting hadn't started. I didn't hear your comments because I was talking to the analyst.
Point of order.
Go ahead, Mr. Housefather, on your point of order.
Yeah, Ms. Khalid clearly spoke before anybody else had their hand up, Mr. Chair. You convened this meeting at a time without consulting anybody else on the committee. And to be honest, I thought that was exceptionally unfair of you. And
Mr. Housefather
clearly demonstrated her request to speak before any of the other people had their hands up.
The gavel had not dropped, Mr. Housefather.
But you were aware that she asked, Mr. Chair.
I was talking to the analyst at the time, Mr. Housefather, and I can assure you that this meeting has been convened in accordance with the standing orders and the rules of the House of Commons. So I am going to start with Mr. Chong. I'm going to keep the list, and Ms. Khalid, you will go when you're recognized on the floor. Mr. Chong, you have the floor. Go ahead.
March 28th, 2024, tabling of the Winnipeg lab documents, which contained the government's own findings, concluding that the People's Republic of China and its entities infiltrated Canada's top microbiology lab, a national security breach representing a very serious and credible threat to Canada. And given that access to this information had been denied to Parliament and all Canadians by the government for several years, the committee undertake a study pursuant to Standing Orders 108, 3, H, 6, and 7 of the collection and transmission of information and intelligence within the Government of Canada and the government's reliance on its overclassification to deny access to it by Parliament and Canadians, provided that the committee report its findings to the House and call the following witnesses to appear. A, the Departmental Security Officer, Executive Director of Security, Public Health Agency of Canada, the Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Stephen Lucas, the Vice President, Infectious Diseases Branch, Public Health Agency of Canada, Dr. Donald Shepard, the Vice President, National Microbiology Laboratory Branch, Public Health Agency of Canada, Dr. Guillaume Poliquin, the President of the Public Health Agency of Canada, Heather Jeffrey, the Minister of Health, the Honourable Mark Holland, the Director of the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, David Vigneault, the Deputy Clerk of the Privy Council and National Security and Intelligence Advisor to the Prime Minister, Nathalie Drouin, and the Minister of Public Safety, Democratic Institutions and Intergovernmental Affairs, the Honourable Dominic LeBlanc. Mr. Chair, I'd like to give a brief couple of minutes of remarks on this motion so that all members...
Thank you, Mr. Chong. Before you go ahead, the motion is in order, and my understanding is that the clerk has shared the motion in both official languages with all members of the committee. Go ahead with your comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple minutes of remarks so that all members will have a say on this motion and we can get it to a vote in the time that we have. We finally, Mr. Chair, have the documents. In our view, this is the start of this matter, not the end. We are continuing off where we left 3 years ago when the Canada-China Committee asked for the Winnipeg lab documents. And I believe that this committee has to conduct this work because the government has indicated, and Minister Holland specifically, that no one within PIAC is going to be held accountable and terminated for these lapses at the Winnipeg lab. So I believe Parliament has a job to hold the government accountable. This is a grave and serious matter that requires a parliamentary to investigate. Dr. Chu clandestinely collaborated with the government and the military of the People's Republic of China and was paid by that same government and military of the People's Republic of China without the government of Canada knowing. These Winnipeg lab breaches are part of a broader pattern by this government of neglecting Canada's national security. We not only have the Winnipeg lab breaches, we have a neglect of sensitive areas of research at Canadian universities in the theft of intellectual property and the threat to national security that CSIS has now highlighted for almost a decade. We have the neglect of the PRC's foreign interference threat activities directed at democratic institutions like Parliament and at our democratic processes like our general elections, which has forced the government to call a public inquiry, which is ongoing. And in all of this, it's the Prime Minister, the head of government, that is responsible. There is a document, a PCO document, titled Open and Accountable Government. It is one of the founding documents of this current government. In that document, it is clear that the Prime Minister alone is responsible for the machinery of government, that the Prime Minister alone is responsible for how information and intelligence flows within the different entities of the Government of Canada, flows from services like the Canadian Security Intelligence Service to various departments and agencies of the government. That same document also makes it clear that the Prime Minister has a unique responsibility for national security. And so when we combine those two things together, we have a responsibility as parliamentarians to get to the bottom of this, because ultimately the Prime Minister is accountable to Parliament, as is the Ministry. And so the motion that is in front of us today is a substantive motion that is focused on examining two things that are within the mandate of the committee. First, the purpose of the motion in front of us is to examine the flow of information and intelligence within the Government of Canada, to examine why this information and intelligence did not catch the clandestine activities of Dr. Chu before September 2018, when it was discovered that Dr. Chu had improperly registered a patent produced from work as a government scientist in the People's Republic of China. To discover why Dr. Chu had not been discovered in the 2 previous years, in 2017 and 18, of having clandestinely met with entities within the People's Republic of China and clandestinely received payments from the government and the military of the People's Republic of China for that travel. The purpose of the motion in respect of examining the flow of intelligence within the Government of Canada is to also examine why it took 10 months for the government to secure the lab when it had been discovered that a patent had been improperly registered in the PRC and government policy violated. The patent violation was discovered in September of 2018, yet it took 10 months till July 5th of 2019 for the government to secure the lab. Despite the fact that in the early part of 2019, when Dr. Chu's computer was seized by government IT, and despite the fact that Dr. Chu, in the early part of 2019, was denied approval for a trip to the PRC, she was still allowed to ship lethal Ebola and Hennepin viruses on March 31st of 2019 from the Winnipeg National Microbiology Laboratory to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. We need to understand why information didn't flow more quickly to prevent that from happening. The second substantive examination that the motion proposes is to examine why the documents originally requested in 2021 were overclassified. Minister Holland has indicated in the House of Commons that the classification of the documents was PIAC's responsibility alone. And so we need to understand why officials at the Public Health Agency of Canada incorrectly classified these documents and denied a parliamentary committee this information. And that's why, Mr. Chair, all of the witnesses, with the exception of two witnesses, exception of three witnesses, I should say, are witnesses that are from PIAC. That is why we're asking for the Departmental Security Officer to appear. It was that position that originally flagged the violation of government policy in the registration of a patent in the People's Republic of China. It's why we're calling other officials from PIAC to understand what broke down in transmitting information that a parliamentary committee had ordered 4 times to Parliament and its committees.
Oh, yeah. I speak in support of the motion, and let me say at the outset that this national security breach is about as serious as it gets. A national security breach that occurred at Canada's highest security lab that is responsible for handling and studying some of the most dangerous pathogens and viruses. For 3 years, this Prime Minister has been anything but transparent. Instead of informing Canadians about this massive national security breach that took place under his watch, he covered it up. In an unprecedented campaign of obstruction, the Prime Minister defied 4 orders of Parliament, and for the first time in Canadian history, he took the Speaker of the House of Commons to court to block the documents, 600 pages of documents that have finally been produced to this committee, and he called a snap election in an effort to avoid producing those documents, an election that, incidentally, the Beijing regime interfered on his behalf to the benefit of the Liberal Party. So now, after 3 years of cover-up and obstruction, we finally have the documents. And what is evident upon reviewing these documents is that there was a massive breakdown with respect to the flow of intelligence and information within the Government of Canada. And that is one of the central matters for which this motion seeks to get to the bottom of. To underscore the degree to which there was a breakdown with respect to information and intelligence, the head of special pathogens, scientist, one of 2, who is a central figure in collaborating with the Beijing regime, by the time a preliminary investigation was launched in the fall of 2018, that scientist, Dr. Chu, had traveled to the PRC on at least 5 occasions, had collaborated with PRC officials, including officials within the People's Liberation Army. Among those Dr. Chu collaborated with was none other than Beijing's foremost expert in biodefense and bioterrorism. bioterrorism. And Dr. Chu had been paid for her travels to Beijing, all apparently unknown to PHAC. An investigation finally gets launched in September of 2018, but Dr. Chu continues to work in the lab until July 5th of 2019, 10 months later. During that 10-month window, Dr. Chu continued to have unfettered access to the lab. By March of 2019, a report had been issued in which PHAC had determined that Dr. Chu had been actively collaborating with the Beijing regime, with the PLA, clandestinely, without the knowledge of PHAC, that she had shipped antibodies to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and yet, while PHAC knew that, Dr. Chu was the central figure in facilitating the transfer of Ebola to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, one of the most dangerous and most deadly viruses in the world. How did that happen? How was that allowed to take place? This breakdown in national security has had serious consequences. In fact, CSIS and PHAC have determined that this breach represents a very serious and credible danger to the Government of Canada as a whole, and that it constitutes a credible threat to Canada's economic security. Now, Mr. Chair, as Mr. Chong noted, the Prime Minister is singularly responsible for the machinery of government with special responsibilities for national security. The buck stops with the Prime Minister. And part of the questions that we need answers to is, when did the Prime Minister know about this massive national security breach? Did he learn about it in 2019, or did he learn about it in January of 2021? We don't know, or sometime in between. Let me conclude by saying very simply that the national security culture of the Government of Canada starts at the top. It starts with the Prime Minister, who has special responsibilities when it comes to national security. This Prime Minister set the tone for the national security culture when he said, famously, that he admires Beijing's basic dictatorship. In other words, he admires a brutal, authoritarian, genocidal regime. And we have seen over the past 8 years of Justin Trudeau interference on the part of Beijing in our post-secondary institutions, interference in our elections, interference in the targeting of sitting members of Parliament, interference in terms of setting up illegal police stations, and the intimidation of Chinese Canadians. And now we have learned that Beijing was given unfettered access to some of Canada's most sensitive biological secrets. After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, Canada's national security culture is broken, and an incident on the scale of what happened in Winnipeg is a direct result of that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yeah. The next on the list is Ms. Khalid, followed by Mr. Villemur. Ms. Khalid, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your indulgence and for the privilege of being able to speak in this committee on this very, very important issue. First and foremost, I just want to start by thanking, as many members would know, I served on the ad hoc committee for Winnipeg Labs. And I want to thank MP Renee Villemure, Heather McPherson, and John Williamson, all from different parties. The four of us worked very tirelessly to go through these documents and to ensure that we were actually being able to be open and transparent. It was a great process. And this committee, this ad hoc committee, was something that this Liberal government put into place. And it was difficult to get it going because the Conservatives dragged their feet for so long. And when we got through this months and months of work that we did collectively, nonpartisan way, to really find out and to understand what happened here, I think that we came to a good conclusion. And I really want to congratulate my three other colleagues on that really, really good work. Now, this ad hoc committee, we had proposed this ad hoc committee of parliamentarians to balance that parliamentary accountability while protecting national security. And Chair and colleagues, as you may know, I've sat on National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians. I know how important it is for us to balance that relationship of accountability while also protecting our national security. And as my four Conservative colleagues, none of whom are permanent members of this committee, if I may add, have all alluded to that there was apparently some kind of cover-up. There was no cover-up. There was no cover-up, Chair. We are supportive of taking the unprecedented step of creating these ad hoc committee, going through the documents, of having arbiters, and then releasing documents. This has been a nonpartisan process. And this is all about the public interest, and all parliamentarians from all parties came together to make sure that we got there. The second point I want to raise, Chair, is that the redactions that are done by PHAC, which is the Public Health Agency of Canada, and CSIS, they're not done by politicians. And it should stay that way. There's very good reasons why politicians should not be involved in determining what should be redacted on the basis of national security. And I think that the role of this ad hoc committee proved how important it is for us to have that oversight, that accountability, but not to be part of that redaction process. The ad hoc process was an opportunity for Parliament to really weigh in on how these redactions happened, and in this instance, what was redacted, without endangering national security or privacy. And this is a process that I think my colleagues, including Mr. Villemure, would agree with, that works. The third point I want to raise, Chair, on this motion and on this emergency meeting is that we share the outrage on foreign interference. We know that this is an issue, this is a challenge that we have to address, and we can't let partisan politics get into the middle of it. We have to come together as a parliament to ensure that we are protecting Canadians, that we are protecting ourselves in the work that we do to hold government to account, for sure, to make sure that our democratic institutions are stable, are well established, and are protected from a lot of this. Foreign interference is an attack against democracy. And every member in this House of Commons, and we share that concern, Chair, and we have to be united in ensuring that we're working to combat foreign interference for the sake of our democracy and for the sake of Canadians who live here day by day by day. And it is unacceptable that there were 2 Canadian citizens who were eminent and well-known scientists in Canada that lied to the Public Health Agency of Canada about their work in China. And this is currently an RCMP investigation into these individuals. And I hope that we trust and respect the RCMP to conduct that investigation while we conduct our role as parliamentarians in the general oversight in that process. This motion, Chair, that has been brought to this committee, this is not our committee's mandate. And I'm sure Mr. Vermeer and myself, we have worked really hard on the ad hoc committee for this Winnipeg Labs issue to ensure that Canadians had access to that document. We released those letters, all of those documents. We put out a letter putting in our position. We had arbiters that came in and overlooked the work that we did also. This was an amazing way of showing how nonpartisan politics can work to protect the safety and security of Canadians while also ensuring parliamentary accountability and oversight into the work that we do. Now, Chair, I have to say, this 1064 meeting calling process is supposed to be reserved for emergencies and not for political games. The original letter that we've received on this 1064 really claims that, and again, it spreads disinformation in my opinion, that, that it was the Trudeau government that withheld all of these documents, that there's something nefarious going on here, that there's a scandal going on here. But the reality of the matter is, Chair, that we have worked very hard with all parties to ensure that there is accountability. We know, and I think that all members of this party, and I will again have to say that every single Conservative member who signed this 1064 letter has been substituted out by another member. They are not here in this room. So clearly, this is not the emergency that these permanent members signed off on. They're not here. Clearly, they don't care when we have all of these people substituted in for what is the mandate and the expectation of what the Ethics Committee is. The events that are in these documents, while they're incredibly important, and our government's taken action by creating this ad hoc committee, by releasing those documents publicly, does not constitute an emergency of what transpired 5 years ago. Many actions have been taken over these 5 years to ensure that these issues have been dealt with and that they won't happen again. That's literally the purpose of how we are going to get to ensuring that there's accountability and fairness in process. The ad hoc committee, which again I was a part of, we did important work over the course of many, many months to get to the bottom of this. This 1064 is not necessary. It's not urgent. It is not in the mandate of this ethics committee. And Chair, for that reason, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Point of order.
Mr. Chair, I request a recorded vote on this. Thank you.
That's fine. Mr. Chong.
Point of order.
It's
point
not,
of order, Mr. Chair.
On a point of order, it's not debatable what Ms. Khalid just...
I just want clarification to the effect of what Ms. Khalid has moved is to shut down debate.
I'm so sorry, Chair, but no, I refuse to let
this
1064 to become political gander for
Ms.
my
Khalid, I've already addressed
colleagues.
that with Mr. Cooper, and for those who are watching at home, this is a dilatory motion to stop the meeting before a decision is rendered. So I am going to ask the clerk. It is non-debatable. Mr. Chong has asked for recorded division, and I'm going to ask the clerk.
Sorry, Chair. It sounds like you're debating a little bit there.
No, I'm explaining. I'm explaining, Ms. Khalid.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'm explaining exactly what's going on here, and that there is no further debate. That you have asked that this meeting be adjourned without a decision of the committee being made. I'm explaining.
Because this is not the mandate of the committee, Chair.
That's your opinion. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
The vote is on the motion to adjourn the meeting. Mr. Baines.
Yes.
Ms. Damoff.
Yes.
Mr. Sorbar.
Yes, please.
Mr. Hausvater.
Yes.
Ms. Khalid.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
No?
Mr. Chong.
No.
Mr. Ellis.
No.
Monsieur Villemur.
Je suis contre.
Mr. Green.
Je vote pour la motion.
Yeas 6, nays 4.
So the motion to adjourn does carry by Ms. Khalid. This meeting is now adjourned.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations, you're spending more money on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined.
How many kids did you molest Jeffrey Epstein?
More than just elbows. These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Anyhow, what are you going to do? Trying to keep you informed. Aaron Canadian Looney trying to hit 30,000 subs. Help me get there. Thank you for watching this video. We'll catch you in the next one. Later, gang.